Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Anviti Connects, yet another series of webinar. I'm Dr. Nisha Nair, and I represent Anviti's Health Risk Management team. Our team specializes in providing end-to-end health risk solutions to the organizations to manage their employees' health risk. To set the context for today's sessions, which is on the topic of importance of sleep on our daily life and health. Sleep plays a vital role in good health and well-being throughout our life. Getting enough quality sleep at right times can help protect our mental health, physical health, and quality of life. Sleep is something that we often take for granted, but it is one thing, if taken care, can change our lives for good. 13 studies from National Sleep Foundation states that sleep preceding learning can improve learning by 40%. Sleep is linked to lifestyle diseases and Alzheimer's. In these times of pandemic, we are trying to improve our immunity by various means, but many of us don't know that poor sleep can significantly reduce our immunity. There are numerous ways that sleep can affect everything from health, learning to our relationships. So to learn more about this fascinating aspect of our lives, today we have invited Dr. Ashwini Mandana from ResMed India. She is a clinical expert and a sleep specialist. She has done her MD Pharmacology from AJIMS Mangalore and Master's Diploma in Business Administration, Pharma Marketing. She's a member of clinical team. She has 10 years of experience of conducting training with spectrum of educational activities like seminars, conferences, and corporate awareness sessions. Before handing over to Doctor, I request all the participants to post your questions or queries in the chat box. Post the session, Doctor will be addressing all of them. So over to you, Dr. Ashwini. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Nisha. That was a wonderful prelude to what we are going to be talking about. First of all, let me start by thanking Anviti Wellness for giving us this opportunity to be here. So today, I will be taking you all through it'll be a very interactive session. In terms of, I hope to see a lot of questions come in so that I can answer that for you. Otherwise, yeah, I'll try to give you all an understanding about what sleep is, how it benefits us, how much sleep is important, and what happens when you don't sleep well. And very nicely, she's put it in a nutshell that it impacts health, learning, and relationships. Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people who have problems with snoring will obviously know how much it affects relationships. So without any more wasting any more time, let's go on to the discussing the topic. Right. So a small bit about who we are. ResMed is a company that is a pioneer of sleep therapy devices called the CPAP devices. It was first invented by ResMed, and we are present. We have our footprint in around 100 countries worldwide, and we are the pioneers in sleep therapy devices and in ventilators, right, for both hospital and home care setting. So I think this is a very a scene that made all of us smile at one point in time with the work from home scenario. I'm sure this BBC interview we all have seen, wherein we all are now confined to our homes during the COVID scenario and are working from home, like how I am at this point in time. But with it comes a lot of other problems, like we have got a high reliance on technology. We are constantly in the sitting posture, very less physical activity because we are not going from one cabin to another to talk to a friend or a colleague to discuss our business issues. All interpersonal communication are restricted to mobile calls, instant messages, video calls. We are drinking much more coffee, probably some of us. It affects our eating habits. Probably, if you are in an office setup, we all go for lunch together, and we take our coffee breaks at time. But when we are at home, we might just delay lunch because not everybody goes for lunch at the same time, and so eating habits will take a hit. If you're waking up very late, maybe you skip your breakfast, etc. So a work schedule and personal schedule is blurred. I think this was one of the topmost complaints that we heard when work from home started, that we do not know when to shut the laptop down. I also hear some of my colleagues say that they don't shut their laptops at all. They have limited socialization. Socialization has taken a huge hit, and there is more stress, and lifestyle is not very healthy as it is, right? Unless we are taking steps to correct it. And I'm sure a lot of us have corrected this. I think we are close to 5 months into lockdown, and we are correcting these things. We are trying to bring some semblance of healthy lifestyle, but still, it is a work in progress, if I may say. Understanding sleep. Sleep is a very important part of health. When I talk about health, I think we all understand the importance of good nutrition, a healthy diet. We understand the importance of physical activity, which basically the standards or the guidelines say we need to have at least 30 minutes of exercise 5 times a week. We also have been hearing about mental health a lot over the in this last decade, if I may say, and also a lot during this lockdown, right? But the spotlight on sleep has not yet been there. We take sleep for granted. We think it is something that happens automatically, and it is of not much of importance. Just that when you feel sleepy, you sleep and you get up. Though there is a lot more awareness than it was there a decade ago, I may say, but still we do not give sleep the due importance it is required. At least nobody would tell anyone, if you want to lose weight, you need to sleep well, right? They would always say you need to have a good nutrition and good exercise. So similarly, what is sleep? It is basically a naturally occurring state. It is periodic and recurring. It involves both your brain and your body. It involves temporary suspension of your consciousness. There is relaxation and inactivity of your muscles, and it restores your body powers. It basically reboots our body. Now, like Dr. Nisha was talking to us in the introduction, sleeping well makes us smarter. There are a lot of times when we want to take a decision, we end up telling the person, let me sleep on it and come back to you. So it's basically because sleeping helps us, make a decision. Okay. For this, I can give you an example. Have you all ever had this example? I'm sure most of you all would agree with me. At least I have had this example. If I'm worrying about an issue, should I have a job change? Or is there something very important that I'm thinking about? Or if I'm going to give an exam, you're constantly thinking about it so much that you're dreaming about writing your exam, or there is something related to that. So your brain is basically problem solving, right? So when you wake up, you actually know you don't have to what decision you really want to make. Next, coming to being productive. Very often we hear some of our seniors say, waste not life, in grade we will be sleeping enough. In fact, we have some bumper stickers on cars which say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And to add it all, I've seen in a lot of families there is a lot of bias against somebody who is sleeping. Let's say somebody is feeling sleepy, or he's either made fun of, or if they sleep for a longer duration time, we sometimes we end up making fun of them. There's a bias against somebody who sleeps a lot, to the fact that we refer to them as being lazy. So that is not right, right? And it has also been proven that sleeping well can turn your grades around. Okay. Obviously, we have heard all our parents at one point in time, or now today, we tell our children to sleep well so that they can get better grades, right? And that is not just a myth; it is actually a scientific point. And it also, and Nisha was actually talking about this, that sleeping helps us learn complicated tasks, especially like guitar, etc. If you're learning, it really helps us learn it better. So, how much sleep do we need? This chart basically tells you what is the amount of sleep that is in the gray boxes each age group requires. What is still appropriate to have? This is a little too much, a little too less, but it is still appropriate. At least this is minimum sleep. This is a little too much, but it is maximum. But this is the recommended amount of sleep that we need. Now, considering here, I have all of us here are above 18 years. I think 7 to 9 hours of sleep is something we need. How does one know how much sleep do you need? Is it 7 hours, 8 hours, or 9 hours? So what you do is during your weekend, do not have alcohol, or go to sleep on time and wake up without a alarm clock. See how much time that you needed to wake up. Do that over 2 to 3 days. Your sleep debt should go away. sleep debt. Let me say again, if you have not slept for 3 days and then you go to sleep on Friday evening, obviously you'll take around 12 hours of sleep at least. So 12 hours is not what you need. So you should have no sleep debt, and then you have to go to sleep, and then when you wake up, when you feel refreshed, you know it is 7 hours, 8 hours, or 9 hours. At least for me, I have found out what is the number of hours that I feel really fresh after getting up. It is not 6 hours for sure, right? For most of us. So this is something that we need to realize. What is the amount of sleep that I feel that I'm okay with? That is between 7 to 9 it should be, right? And anything below that is too few, and anything above that can also be bad for your health. So other than that, this is a very interesting slide to tell you all how we sleep. We do not we usually sleep in bouts of places where we do not dream and places where we dream. We do not dream, we dream. Then we go into non-dream sleep, dream sleep. What does REM mean? I would love to hear some responses on the chat box. Have you all ever seen infants when they sleep, their eyes keep moving and they keep smiling? How many of you all must have seen that? The eyes just moving. So if you all have seen that, that is what is known as rapid eye movement. Okay. We also do this rapid eye movement, and this is when, Aditya, that is rapid eye movement, and this is where we are dreaming about we are looking at the images that our brain is throwing out. So that is why that is one theory why our eyes move. We still do not know really well why the eyes move, but that is one theory why our eyes move. This is the dream sleep. And then you have the, thanks, Krishna. So this is the non-dream sleep. So non-dream and dream sleep. So dream sleep is otherwise in medical terminology, it's known as a REM sleep. Why I've kept this slide is not to bore you at all, but to tell you all that if today morning you all woke up between your dreams, then you all woke up somewhere over here or here. If you woke up without remembering anything about your dream, that means you woke up somewhere over here or over here. So we need around 4 to 5 cycles of sleep. So you decide whether you want to sleep for 6 hours or 7 hours, because one sleep cycle takes around 1.5 hours. So you need at least 4 sleep cycles. So 4 sleep cycles will come and reach at least here, 7 hours. And 5 sleep cycles will come and reach over here. So you need around 90 minutes for one sleep cycle, 90 minutes to 110 minutes, but usually somewhere around that. So you need around 4 to 5 cycles of non-dream and dream, right? And if you woke up without your remembering your dream, you're woken up here. And if you woke up with your remembering your dream, you woke up over here. And another thing, interesting thing over here, you can see you don't dream much during the initial part of sleep. You dream more. You can see this line getting thicker, this bar getting thicker over here. You dream more when you're waking up. Okay. Next. Now, is there an importance to go into non-dream and dream? Very much so. This part, the stage 3 sleep that is there, it is one of the best sleep that a person can get. This is what has the anti-aging effect for us. So when you look at this, stage 1 is good, stage 2 is good, but the best part of the sleep is the stage 3 and the REM sleep. Stage 3 is absolutely important for us, for the muscles to relax. This is where any healing effect of our body takes place. So nowadays, scientists are seeing how they can use certain sound to increase our stage 3 sleep to get an anti-aging effect. You can see the stage 3 sleep, it's just elusive. It's not even out here. It is over here a little bit. Over here, the person got a little bit of time of stage 3. Over here, yeah, he got a significant amount of stage 3. So this is where stage 3 sleep is extremely important for our body to repair itself. Though 1 and 2 also have some repair effect, but stage 3 is extremely important. And then REM is important for our memory, our creativity, for long-term memory formation, for all the cognitive function. It is our dream sleep that is extremely important. I hope it was not too confusing and it was interesting fact for you all. Now, how does it affect? Now, this slide I have kept to make you understand as to sleep affects all our body functions. Okay, be it our bone structure. Sleep is important for it to reboot and be in good health. Be it our muscle system. Like for example, if as a child when we must have had a lot of bruises, right? When we slept and got up, it would be much better than before. So for the muscle system and the skin, even if we had any swelling, etc., sleep actually brings it down. This is something we all must have seen it happen to us. Circulatory system. I can tell you all our heart rate goes down to 60s when we go to sleep, 60s and 50s when we go to sleep, because your heart beats slowly, because your oxygen requirement is not too much, and your BP falls by 20%. And that's a very huge fall in BP. We don't feel hungry during sleep. Our kidneys get some rest during sleep. We don't get up. What is the normal number of times to wake up to go to the restroom at night? Is it 0 to 1? It is actually zero, right? Most of the time it is zero. So our urinary system is in complete rest. So you basically see that sleep is important for every part of our body, be it reproductive, nervous, endocrine, that is hormone system, lymphatic system, which removes the toxins from our body, or the respiratory system. So sleep is extremely important for all parts of our body. Remember this. I will, so what this slide basically wants to show is, when I was telling you all it's important in the brain, it helps us clear out toxins. If there is because of smoking or because of the exposure to dust in the pre-COVID era, if that would have caused any kind of bruises onto our nerves, then those are all cleared out during the sleep. Heart rate slows down, digestion slows down, appetite comes down, lungs breathe slower, it becomes more regular, and muscles are much relaxed, and the growth and repair happens. Next, coming to sleep and immunity. When we sleep, like I told you, the lymphatic system is working. That is the system which removes the toxins. It is during the sleep that there is release of a marker known as the cytokines. Cytokines are a type of protein that, like it's written over here, it targets the infection and the inflammation, right? It is what creates our immune response. So when we do not have enough of cytokines, we are more prone for infections. That is where sleep is very important. Now, yes, it is seen that when you have a lesser number of sleep, there is a higher prevalence of catching the flu, right? So this is where we sleep is an extremely important arsenal to fight against inflammation and infection for us. Now, coming to sleep deprivation and the consequences, before I go into the next part of the session, I request all to take a small quiz which will talk about how, I've already told you all how sleep affects every part of the body. So this quiz will take you all through your digestive system or your memory, your cognitive functions, your a little bit about your sleep habits, to just make you understand or get an idea whether you have symptoms of a very common disorder known as sleep apnea or not. So to take this quiz, all you have to do is, if you all have your phones next to you all, we'll give you all a 5 minutes break. You all can just take your phones, use your phones, and just use the QR code, and it will take you through the sleep assessment page. Dr. Nisha, I can wait for a bit, right? Till they take the quiz.
Yeah, sure, Doc. We can wait for 5 minutes. I request all the participants who are interested to go through this assessment. It is really helpful. I have done that. So it's really helpful if you can just, it will make you to understand that where is your sleep stage. So in the meantime, Dr. Ashwini, we are getting so many questions from the participants about the sleep. So maybe we can address 1 or 2 questions during this time. So people are asking like how to overcome the issue of sleep struggling. So sometimes we sleep on time, like maybe 11 o'clock, and we wake up suddenly at 2 a.m. for maybe a washroom purpose or to have water. But after that, there is a struggle to call sleep again. Please suggest if there is something which we can do, or we need to do some kind of exercises which can help us.
So if someone's having this only once, it is very rare that somebody has to get up to go to the restroom unless there is a problem. Waking up at night to go to the restroom repeatedly, like very frequently, like even if it is happening one time every night, like repeatedly, then you need to understand why is that one thing happening. Is it because of high glucose levels, or is it because of sleep apnea itself? So why is it that the person is waking up? That has to be the root cause of waking up has to be tackled with, Dr. Nisha. it cannot be that somebody is waking up every night. But nonetheless, if it is happening just once a month and still you're finding it difficult to sleep, if you're finding it difficult to sleep, don't go back to your bed and lie down. What happens is your bed shouldn't be associated with you being awake. You need to go back to your sitting room, sit down in dim light, do a little bit of reading. You can also try meditation wherein you're not having any thoughts and then go to sleep. A easy way is this. I'm keeping aside the religious beliefs. Even saying a mantra, it can be a Hindu mantra or any other mantra that you have. Saying it repeatedly actually allows your brain not to be thinking about anything, and you can go to sleep. Right?
Thank you. Thank you, doctor. There's one more question, that what is the role of meditation in immunity boosting? Can we exchange meditation with sleep? Are they anyway related to each other?
Okay, I think that's I think meditation is good for the brain to allow it to reset, but you cannot replace it with sleep. And there are no studies to back up saying if you do meditate, you do not have to sleep. Having a 7 to 9 hours of sleep, whichever is important, whichever is required for you all, is irreplaceable. Not even with meditation, is what I, as a allopathy doctor, would say. Right? To add on to this question, there is another question here from Janaswamy, which he's asking. Scientists say at least 7 hours of sleep is needed, and in his personal life, he knows somebody who sleeps less than 5 hours a day. So there are some people who do sleep lesser, including our Prime Minister, but it is up to you to know how much sleep you need. These are people who are at very different ends of the spectrum who may need lesser amount of sleep. But I think we can also give you examples of top level CEOs. If you remember in 2008, there was a SAP CEO who put all his energy into diet and exercise, who used to keep sleep a little on the back seat, and he lost his life. Very recently, we had another example in Gurgaon where another leader lost his life. Again, it was because of exercise, and he used to keep sleep aside. So this is where I want to say that you should know how much sleep one needs, and you should take that much amount of sleep. Do not try to emulate others in terms of sleep. Right?
Yeah, got it. Doc, if 7 to 9 hours of sleep is recommended, does it mean a continuous sleep, or the total number of hours in a day should be this much?
So continuous is the best. But if for any chance, like let's say you're going on a trip or something and you got up at 4 a.m. and you missed out on sleep, but that afternoon you're allowed to take a 30-minute nap, not more than the 30-minute nap. The reason why we say a 30-minute nap is because your nap time should not go into your REM sleep. Once you go into REM sleep, you should finish your whole 1 hour or 2, 3 REMs we finish. You all must have seen that on weekends, if you go to sleep, if you get up in 30 minutes, you get up. Otherwise, you get up after 2 hours. You finish 2 sleep cycles and then you get up. Then you cannot sleep again at night.
Yes. With the last question, and after that, we can just start the session.
Sure.
Yeah. So, what is the suggestion of on a link between alcohol consumption and sleep?
So very good question. I had it in the next few slides, but alcohol consumption, what it does not allow your body to go into stage 3 sleep. Like I kept repeating, stage 3 sleep and REM sleep are the most important. It keeps you on a stage 2 sleep. Right? So some medications have different effects. Some have effect in reducing your REM sleep. So some antihypertensives, if you start your antihypertensives, I'm not saying like if a patient just starts with his antihypertensive, they start having a sleep deprived feeling, like waking up at 3 a.m., etc. Because REM sleep is taken away from by the medication. So the same way, alcohol does not allow the person to go into a stage 3 sleep, which is required for the healing of the body.
Thank you, Doc. So I
Yeah.
think we have given a good amount of time for people to take part in the quiz. Can we continue
Sure.
the session?
Sure. I just
Thank
hope for anyone else who wants to take the quiz, and y'all can visit this link a little later too. Right. Going forward, now coming to understanding that are we sleep deprived? Now we know because of the lockdown situation, in the mornings we don't have to get up and go to office, so we usually sleep till 8 a.m., etc. So what happens is at night we binge watch, thanks to all the subscriptions that we have today. We play endless video games. We video chat until sunrise, and we worry that about the future thoughts, and we keep ourselves awake for a long time. In fact, there was a survey in Economic Times which said it is a pan India survey which released revealed that 44% of the 1,500 respondents were getting less than 6 hours of sleep during lockdown because they thought they are just at home and they do not have to worry too much about sleep. And research has shown that not getting enough of sleep can increase the risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes. So sleep deprivation, it affects both mind and body. In terms of the mind, it reduces your attention span, your concentration, your response time. It impairs your memory and learning. Your productivity is much lesser. Your creativity is, not top notch. You suddenly realize that you're not as creative as you were before. Okay, it worsens your mood. It accelerates aging in individuals. It puts pressure on the heart because if you're not giving the heart the 7 hours of rest it requires, your heart is in constant high functioning mode. It lowers libido. It weakens your immune system and it increases appetite. So not sleeping can actually be contributing to the obesity a person may have. Yeah. So does it matter if you're tired at work? Yes. If you're tired at work because of sleep deprivation, you're not innovative, you're sleeping on your job, your work rate is slower, you are irritable with your colleagues, and you have the cravings, right? So it is very important to have a very good night's sleep for our everyday work. Right. And there are various factors that contribute to poor sleep. I just now spoke about alcohol and pills. There are various pills that can cause these issues. But one of the most important and most commonly prescribed pills are the antidepressants that cause you to feel a little more sleepy, whereas hypertensive medications, which may cause you to fragment your sleep. Shift workers is a very important issue. It is a session by itself, how to manage sleep and shift workers. There is a whole guideline as to how to manage your sleep and shift workers. It says that when they should wake up and expose themselves to sunlight and how long should you keep shift workers in the night shift is also there. Jet lag obviously is contributes to poor sleep. Technology, we all have understood. Bedroom light, we need to have a dim light in the bedroom, orange light. Temperature shift, our temperature should be apt for, it is a very relative feel, but it's usually between 18 and 24 is what the guidelines say. And limited coffee can also impact sleep. So there are various kinds of sleep disorders. If you ask me which is the most common sleep disorder, it is insomnia. And most common cause of insomnia is technology. It requires only cognitive behavioral intervention to come out of insomnia, which we ourselves can do if we do a little bit of reading and we are smart about how we manage our technology. Other than that, the second most common sleep disorder is snoring and sleep apnea. It is the second most common disorder. A lot of people do not think snoring is a problem, but I'll be talking about it in the next few slides, and you all will be able to understand more about it then. Other than that, you have something called hypersomnia, wherein you feel excessively sleepy. This is called, a person is known as a hypersomniac only if it is not because of any other disorder. Like for example, if I'm sleeping for 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours at night repeatedly for 5 days, and then I'm feeling sleepy, I'll not come under narcolepsy or a patient called hypersomnia. My problem is acute insomnia. That is why I'm having sleepiness. So therefore, hypersomnia is only when there is no other cause to make you feel sleepy in the mornings, and still you feel sleepy, right? There are some lovely YouTube videos on narcolepsy. You can go and watch it. But it happens in very few patients, and quite an intriguing disorder. Circadian rhythm disorder is the jet lag disorder, which we were talking about. And some people have this where they call themselves the night owl, right? Or some people are the early birds. So this is not really actually good for us either, being a night owl or the early bird. We need to be sleeping between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., somewhere in between that. So if at all anyone has this problem, again, CBT is utilized to bring their bed, the time that they go to bed a little closer to 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. Right? Coming to parasomnia, this is any abnormal movement during sleep, that is sleepwalking, sleep talking, whereas this is a repeated movement disorder in which restless leg is just an example, wherein you have tick-like movement during sleep. Okay, the repeated movement during sleep. So the difference between parasomnia is you'll be doing different kind of activities like walking around or talking or many other things come under parasomnia. Whereas in restless leg syndrome, it can be restless hand syndrome also. It is a repeated jerky movement of a part of the body. So this is encompasses all the sleep disorders. There is no sleep disorder that does not fall under this category. There are only six categories of sleep disorders, of which insomnia and sleep apnea are the most common. Now, coming to sleep apnea, I think today as corporate goers, we are more aware that snoring is not a sign of good sleep. But I remember as kids in the Indian households, if someone's sleeping, we used to always think that the person is having a very good sleep, right? So, in fact, we had sayings like "घोड़े बेच के सो रहा है," or there were many sayings sleeping really well. And we also have Kumbhakaran who is to sleep. So, he's though he snores, it is the scene of someone sleeping really well for us. Okay, so what is happening when we snore? You are having an event called as obstructive sleep apnea. What happens over here is we have the muscles of our upper airway are completely elongated. This is what helps us talk. Okay, but then what happens is during sleep, the whole body relaxes over here, and that is when our upper airway collapses. In fact, it is more during our REM sleep. In REM sleep, if you want to wake somebody, it is very difficult. You remember whenever the alarm rings, the alarm goes into our dreams and it becomes the music for if one is dancing. So similarly, like that, during REM sleep, it does not want to wake you up. Therefore, all your muscles are completely toneless, so that you don't start enacting your dreams. I hope I'm making sense. So that we don't start enacting the football that we kick, or the person that we are hitting, or the running that we are doing. So that for that reason, our muscles are completely paralyzed. In fact, if you get up during your dream, remember those times when you want to wake up during your dream and you're not able to get up, and you're like, oh my God, just wake me up from this dream somehow. So that is called sleep paralysis. That is because you're in your REM state. So understand this, during your REM state, your muscles tone is completely gone. Therefore, that is the time when the upper airway completely collapses. To explain this, I have one more real life scenario. You all must have heard people who snore, they keep snoring and suddenly they stop snoring and then they again start snoring. I vaguely remember this because whenever we go for a marriage function or something and everyone's sleeping in the same house, when an elderly person in the family is snoring and they stop snoring for that little bit, you're like, oh my God, let me go to sleep right now. But then they start snoring again. So that is when the person's upper airway is completely collapsed and the person doesn't know how to do it. So then he has to wake up. That's when he opens up with a gasp again. Okay, so that is what is known as an apnea. Apnea is times when you're not breathing. Okay, so this happens repeatedly. There is complete or partial blockage of the upper airway. So when your upper airway is blocked, obviously what happens is your oxygen levels will drop. Okay, like for example, we have this. Let me introduce Deepak, who is a 40-year-old team lead of an e-commerce operation. He is married and lives in Gurgaon. His projects delegate his sleeping schedule, often alternating between graveyard and day shifts. He is an avid coffee drinker. He smokes. He loves browsing, like most of us. He wants to have a good sleep. Sometimes we all want to take that break and have a good sleep and wake up fresh. He is often irritable, tired, which was not really his case because he was a really happy-go-lucky person. But today he has become a very irritable person who is tired mostly, isn't sleeping throughout the night, and is having trouble concentrating, and which is taking a toll both at work and home. Deepak's partner has mentioned symptoms like snoring and daytime sleepiness, and he may have sleep apnea. So basically, it is somebody like Deepak who has to be worried whether if at all they have symptoms like snoring or excessive daytime sleepiness and irritability and some cognitive functions to understand whether they have sleep apnea or not. Again, somebody like Sonia, who's 45-year-old HR manager, who is married and lives in Bangalore. In females, what happens is we have something called progesterone, which is a respiratory stimulant. So even a small amount of snore, what happens, it wakes up the brain and the person wakes up. So they may not snore very badly, but what happens is even the smallest amount of snore wakes the female up. This remains up till menopause. So until then, even though they don't snore, they'll have frequent arousals because of small closures of the upper airway. And it is better for these people to get again diagnosed and take the therapy so that they can get a non-fragmented sleep, right? So what are the symptoms should one look out for? So the daytime symptoms being excessive daytime sleepiness, feeling tired, lack of energy, early morning headache, diabetes, concentration memory problems, high BP, depression, anxiety or irritability, learning difficulty, especially in children. If any, I'm sure we have a huge audience here, any of your child's notes, if it is only one time, two time because of their blocked nose, it is okay. But on a every time if they are snoring, they have to be taken to a ENT specialist. Okay, there is, I mean, it is 10 times more important to take your child to a ENT specialist right away because it can lead to learning difficulties in children. Next, coming to the nighttime symptoms for adults, snoring, increased frequency of urination. It is not just a sign of diabetes, but can be a sign of sleep apnea. Irregular breathing during sleep, partner witness stoppage of breathing, the one I told you, he keeps snoring, stops snoring, and again starts snoring. So partner witness stoppage of breathing, night sweats, increased cough, a salivation at night, sexual dysfunction, and palpitation. These are signs of sleep apnea. And if you do have any of these signs, you must go ahead and take a home sleep study. What happens if you do not take this seriously? You have increased propensity of developing hypertension, diabetes, obesity, again because you're not sleeping well, depression because you have fragmented sleep, atrial fibrillation. Yes, sleep apnea is one of the major contributors to irregular heartbeats. I have cardiologists who now, when they talk to me, they say sleep apnea can be the reason why, especially in elderly patients who are prone to a heart attack or a stroke, when they don't have oxygen, suddenly the heart has to beat so much faster, and that can trigger a stroke or a heart attack. Right? So, just to give you an example, when we go to sleep, the upper airway closes. This leads to lowering of oxygen and increase of carbon dioxide. So, what happens when your oxygen comes down, carbon dioxide comes up? If I have to close my nose for a while, suddenly my oxygen levels will go down, carbon dioxide will go up. What do I have to do? I will fight out, right? So, similarly, your body will have to get up. Because you got up, your upper airway opened, and this vicious cycle keeps going on and on. Because of your low oxygen levels, your heart has to now work harder, and this is what increases your risk of stroke, heart attack, or hypertension. And because you're waking up again and again, let me just go to this slide. Because you're waking up again and again, instead of being in REM sleep in between, instead, where are you? The person is in wakefulness, right? He keeps waking up again and again. So he does not get enough of stage 3 sleep. Initially, it was 3 and 4, but now it is only 3. You don't get stage 3 sleep, and the person does not get the REM sleep. Hence, aging and other body harm is caused here, and cognitive decline happens because he's not getting enough of REM sleep. So, I will skip the slide because I think we have spoken enough about it. So that was a small presentation on. So what we can do when we have such symptoms is go for a simple home sleep test. A home sleep test, what it does is it has got this nasal cannula that measures your nasal flow throughout the night, and it has an oxygen sensor that will keep measuring your oxygen throughout the night, and the belt around the chest, it keeps seeing whether we are trying to breathe or not. So this will help. The whole data is taken, analyzed by a technician, and then sent over to the doctor. The doctor looks at it and says whether you have sleep apnea or not, right? So that is how sleep apnea is tested. Before we end, it wouldn't be nice if I don't give you all some sleep hygiene tips. Very, very important. This is not taken out of just my clinical practice or our practice. It is taken out of the guidelines. The guidelines say one of the most important things is to maintain a regular bedtime and awakening time. And this is irrespective or agnostic of weekends, right? So during the day, get enough of natural light, especially because we are in from a work from home situations. We don't get natural light, so please make it a point to go out in the morning, especially after you wake up, soak in some sun in the afternoon, soak in some sun, and in the evening, soak some sun up. Okay, exercise, but not really close to bedtime, at least 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. Avoid napping during the day, and even if you're napping, use nap only for 30 minutes and not more than that. Do not go into your first REM cycle. Make sure your bed is associated only with sleep and sexual activity and not watching TV or reading. It cannot be used. I've seen in a lot of households, they take their chai, biscuits, and go and sit on this one and play patta and things like that. And they sit down. No, your bed should be only associated with sleep or intercourse. Now, keep your bedroom dark, quiet, at a comfortable temperature. Have a comfortable bedtime routine. There is somebody who asked me, how can you go to sleep as soon as you want? So what you can do is you can have a bedtime routine, like going and taking a warm water bath, brushing your teeth itself is giving a signal to the body that I'm going to sleep. Making your bed is a signal to the body that you're going to sleep, right? So these are some things. Praying or meditating is a way of signaling your body. So these are the some signals that you can do. Turning on into your bedtime clothes is another. Pajamas is another way. Do not have a large meal or a lot of water or alcohol or caffeinated drinks before bed. Avoid blue light. Turn off your gadgets at least 1 hour before sleep. Maintain regular home and office routine, especially in this scenario. Work on a desk or table, not on a couch or a bed. Very important. This is in today to invest in a table and chair for yourself. Make sure your bed is only associated with sleeping. Like I've already mentioned, I will not tell the next sentence to reduce your screen time. And yes, meditate, moderate exercise during the daytime, right? So with this, please take care that when you're taking care of your diet, your exercise, your mental health, and your sleep, and working very well from home. Yep. So thank you. This is about it from my end. I'm sorry if I have exceeded time or not kept your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. It was really, really wonderful session. So there are lots of questions which has come. Among that, like many of people have asked about the sleep paralysis. So if you can just elaborate on that, because many of the people have asked
So
some
it's
detail on
nothing to be worried about, sleep paralysis. I think it is something all of us have, but if it is happening on a daily basis, then you need to visit a sleep specialist to see why it is happening. But nonetheless, I think it can be because of a difficult time in life also. Our brain really responds to difficult times in life. So if it is a difficult time in life and you're seeing the same dream again and again, it is wise to sort of start journaling, etc., to let it go and have a plan how you're going to come out of those issues, right? But otherwise, if it is happening once in a while, I think it's just normal. And now that you know about it, you'll just know that you're going to come out of it in a bit. Otherwise, initially when it happens, it's very scary.
Okay. Any suggestions for the people who are working in night shifts so that they can have a better sleep?
Okay, night shift is a whole different ball game. I have some slides on a night shift over here. So they have to keep their lights bright at work because at night they will start feeling sleepy. They have to limit the shift changes. So the book says that you can do night shift together for like a month and then not have night shifts for 2 to 3 months. So you cannot, usually in Indian scenario, or most of them, what they do, 15 days night shift, 15 days day shift, or 7 days night shift, 7 days day shift. Instead of that, limit the shift changes as much as possible. Okay. Then limit your caffeine as long as, as you go towards the day, right? Once you do that, once you come back home and you want to go to sleep, you need to go to sleep in the morning at the same time. But in between, at around 11 or 12 o'clock, you need to wake up anyway to have lunch. And that is when you need to expose yourself to sunlight. Again, go back at 3 p.m. Again, turn the whole thing dark and then go to sleep again. Right? So this is some small tips for shift workers. Yeah.
Snoring is something, again, a major problem which many of the employees have asked, like how I can stop snoring, and is there any treatment for that?
So, like I have mentioned, snoring basically is a symptom of sleep apnea. Not that all snorers have sleep apnea, but 99% of the sleep apnea patients do have snoring. Okay. So if you have snoring, I would completely suggest that, recommend that you go and get yourself checked, especially if you're snoring, stopping snoring and again starting snoring. So get yourself checked, because snoring, what happens, it basically is cutting your sleep, because of which you're predisposed to hypertension and diabetes in future. So what you can do is, one thing is, sleeping on your side also is very good. If by sleeping on your side you're not snoring, that is good enough. In fact, there are therapies which guidelines themselves say to stitch a tennis ball onto your shirt so that you don't go back and sleep. Right? It is actually a therapy that is in medical books. But other than that, if you still like to sleep on your back and you don't want to just sleep on your side, then take the sleep study, understand whether you have sleep apnea or not, and then we can think about therapies like CPAP for you.
Thank you. People do speak during the sleep. Is that a thing to worry? Especially some employees have complained that their kids are facing this problem.
So if it is happening on a regular basis, then yes, it requires a consultation to understand what it is before it can not just it can become something else. It could just be a precursor of any other sleep disorder. So if they're doing it repeatedly, then yes. But if it is happening once in a while, I think we can let it be.
Can you brief on effects of sleeping positions?
So in allopathy, we do not have anything like sleeping position other than supine and non-supine. Supine means sleeping on your back. Sleeping on your back is considered good, but sleeping on your tummy, we do not consider very good, because your back is not supported. Other than that, sleeping on your sides, allopathy basically says that that is also a very good position to go. Only in terms of sleep apnea, sleeping on your back is not recommended. Right? But I have seen articles wherein they talk about sleeping on your right side for better digestion, or your left side for better digestion. This is not a evidence fact in our books, medical books.
Is sleep apnea a forewarning signal for heart disease? How necessary is it to treat snoring?
Yeah. So, like I said, snoring itself, every time a person stops snoring in between, there is a collapse of the upper airway, which is increasing your adrenaline at night. Would you want your body to be in a state wherein we all remember in the pre-COVID era how much we hated being in traffic jams, right? When we are in traffic jams, we are irritated, stressed, and there's a lot of adrenaline in us. That is not the state you want to be when you're sleeping. So if you're snoring and you haven't gotten it treated, that means every time you're snoring, you're having an adrenaline rush, how much you are sitting in a traffic jam and getting irritated. So that is where I would suggest that, yes, if you have a snoring, please get it treated so that it does not lead to this. High adrenaline is basically stress, and that is what leads to heart disease. So it has to be treated.
Does sound sleep depends on the sugar levels or related to high BP?
Yeah. So sound sleep in terms of snoring sleep or good sleep?
Good sleep.
So yeah, good sleep is very important for our sugar levels. Again, as I can tell you, when you have adrenaline rush, adrenaline is a fight or flight hormone. What happens is, whenever the body knows you're being stressed, it will release glucose. Whatever fat is there, it will start converting it into glucose. whatever fat is not there, even if it is not getting it from the fat, it will start producing glucose by breaking down your muscles. So adrenaline basically prepares your body to fight or flight, right? So for both of it, glucose is needed. So that is how this uh, not having a good sleep will lead to increase in insulin resistance. For people who have diabetes will understand this term, wherein the body is not sensitive enough to insulin, and it will also increase your glucose level. So there are various factors how sleep apnea leads to diabetes. And another one is whenever you have a bout of apnea, which is stoppage of breathing, there's inflammatory markers that are released in the body. And that leads to insulin resistance and death of the pancreatic cells. This leads to diabetes on the long term. Yeah.
Look, thyroid disorder can also affect sound sleep.
Yes, that's a chicken and egg situations. When a person has got hypothyroidism, then it is they are more prone for sleep apnea. So what the medical books say is both have to be treated simultaneously. Hypothyroidism also leads to obesity and reduction in sleep, quality of sleep. Therefore, that sleep apnea could be a contributor to it. That is why they say you have to treat sleep apnea in those cases, in hypothyroid cases, if they have a problem with sleep and if they have a problem with snoring.
Got it. Some of the employees, they have asked a query of like whenever they sleep, the first stage in that itself, they feel like falling from a height, and suddenly the sleep gets disrupted. So is there something to worry of?
So this happens when you're so sleepy or you're so tired during the day. Let's say you've run a marathon or you have done a lot of gardening and come back, and you're so sorry. You're so sleepy that when you go to bed, that your brain goes to sleep faster than your body, and that is why you have a sinking sensation, right? There is nothing to worry about if it is happening only one time. But if it is happening again and again, that could be a sign of sleep apnea because you're so tired that you want to go to sleep. Your mind is going to sleep faster than your body, right? It is known as hypnagogic hallucinations. I'm sure all of you all must have heard by this time what the term hallucination is. So it is a feeling that you're falling. That is a hallucination. So this is known as hypnagogic hallucination. Happens mostly when you are very, very tired, right? I hope I answered your question, Dr. Nisha.
Yeah, you have. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Some people have asked the positions of sleeping. Does it really matters?
Yeah, like I said, I think sleeping supine is good. It is one of the best positions, but if you have sleep apnea, don't do that. Otherwise, the sides are also equally good, but do not sleep on your stomach because it hurts your back.
Related to the quiz, one question is there. What if I have scored high or moderate on my quiz score?
So if you've scored high or moderate on the sleep quiz, it basically is indicative that you may be having sleep apnea or have a risk for sleep apnea. You could take a home sleep study. Home sleep study, when you want to take, it's a very simple mechanism. You just have to go to the home sleep test page and book for a test. The test will come to your house. There is a video on how to do the study. You can do your study, and then the test will be picked up from your house via the courier. And once it comes back, the data of the whole night is downloaded. Once it's downloaded, it via the cloud, it's sent to the sleep specialist, to a third party, and they look at the whole sleep data, the whole night's data, and then a sleep specialist who's an MD pulmonologist will look at the data and score your study again, and then give you a final diagnosis. So throughout this journey, what ResMed has done is we also have some sleep apnea or sleep counselors. They help you understand your sleep study to know where your sleep study is at this point in time. So after your sleep study comes, they will help you understand the data, and if required, can be on a few days of trial of the device. So what happens is why we have kept this trial of a few days is so that the person can actually wear this the device that the video at the end of it showed. They can actually wear the device and see what happens. So let me just give you a little bit of idea what happens when you use the device. The device basically gives you the air from the room air. Okay, it goes in so much of a pressure that it opens your upper airway, and because it is just air, it does not have any side effects, right? And right from the time you start using it, you start feeling that the kind of memory and your creativity and your sleepiness really comes down, and your willingness to exercise also increases because you have um, slept really well without unfragmented sleep at night, right? So that is what the whole journey of a sleep apnea patient will be like. And after the trial period, you all may decide whether you all want to take the therapy for a long term or not. And once you do that, it is it will avoid you from snoring at night, and you can sleep in any position that you want in that case.
Got it, Doc. Well, what's your suggestion on taking a power nap? Is it a good practice since many of them feel really fresh? There is a time schedule which they should have only half an hour or 1 hour. What is your suggestion on that?
I think power nap is superb, and keep it only for half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour. Half an hour, I think, is absolutely fine. Do not go into the first REM sleep.
One last question, if I can ask, is that somebody who's sleeping very late in the night, but she's trying to cover 7 to 8 hours. So maybe she's sleeping at 1 o'clock, but yeah, she's trying to get up by 9. So that's making that as a timetable. Is it good, or we have to sleep on a different timings?
See, it's nice to see you're at least sleeping for 8 hours, okay? But then, if at all the body's circadian rhythm, you need to go with that also. The body's circadian rhythm will put you to sleep at 9 and wake you up at, let's say, 7. Somewhere in between that, you need to keep, okay, your 7 hours. Now, if that is not happening, if this is normal for you, it is still okay to get this 8 hours. You're not doing anything wrong with your body if you're not getting. But yes, there is a different kind of benefit if you do go to sleep at 11 o'clock and wake up at 7 o'clock. If you wish to do that, you need to practice something called cognitive behavioral therapy, by which you go to a psychologist and they will help you reduce or bring your bedtime early by half an hour every time they talk to you, right? And it'll be a maybe a 6 or 7 months of work that you'll do to bring your bedtime as close to 11 o'clock. If at all this timing doesn't suit you, if at all this time suits you, then I think it's not a problem. It's about getting the number of hours of sleep. Yeah.
Doctor, one more question is, kids, they clench their teeth during the sleep. Is it a sign of some issue, or is it a sleep problem?
So that is the sign of that repeated movement that I spoke about, restless leg syndrome. I told you that was just an example of repeated movement sleep disorder. So bruxism, it's called bruxism, and it is a sign of a disorder. It has to be taken to the doctor, and you all have to get it treated. Yes.
Any advantages of drinking water just before sleeping at night?
Absolutely. I think you should not drink too much of water, but drinking anything less than 200 ml of water will obviously help you. Any amount of dehydration that you have will be taken care of, and you may not have to get up at night for another sip of water if you're feeling dehydrated. I think it's a very good, drinking water itself is good. And at night, just before sleeping, do not drink more than 200 ml because you will end up waking up again for you using the restroom.
And what is the best thing to eat or drink before sleep for a good sleep, both for an adult or a kid?
So milk and milk products are very good because they have these tryptophans that increase your feeling of sleepiness. So yeah, milk or milk products is something that I would suggest, maybe around 100 to 200 ml of milk.
Okay, so I think we have covered most of the questions and queries which has come to us. So with this, we can wrap up the session. Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. It was a wonderful session. And actually, people were not aware about the importance of a good sleep, which is really important like any other activity, like a physical health or a mental health. So thank you so much once again, and look forward for many other sessions with you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us here. Yeah. Thank you for your patient listening. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.